Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Billy Wilder Theater, home of the public programs for the UCLA Film and Television Archive. My name is Paul Malcolm, and I'm a programmer at the archive. As a land-grant institution, the Film and Television Archive at UCLA would like to acknowledge our presence on the traditional, ancestral, and unceded territory of the Gabrielino and Tongva peoples. We are humbled to do work in this community. All of the archive screenings in the Wilder are free admission, thanks to a gift from an anonymous donor, and we are very grateful for their support. UCLA still requires mask wearing indoors regardless of vaccination status. Outside of guests on stage speaking, everyone is required to keep their masks on during tonight's program, and we thank you for following this requirement. Thank you also for coming out to the final screening in American Neorealism Part 2, 1984 to 2020. We started this program 12 nights ago back in June. I've seen a number of people coming to multiple screenings throughout the series. I hope the people that have come throughout the program have really enjoyed the films. I think, if I do say so myself, it was really quite incredible for me and my co-curator Ross Lipman to sort of see all these films that we were watching, on television and computer screens at home over the pandemic up on the big screen and share them with audiences. So it's been quite a journey for us, and I hope you enjoyed those parts of it that you were able to catch. So tonight's program, turning to tonight's program, this series was preceded in 2019 by American Neorealism Part 1, which featured the work of a number of UCLA alumni, including Charles Burnett and Billy Woodbury. We're especially happy to sort of close out Part 2 with Border Radio from 1987, which was co-directed by three UCLA alumni, Allison Anders, Dean Lent, and Kurt Voss. And we'll be presenting, just sort of cap it all off, we'll be presenting the film tonight on a 35mm print from the archive's own collection. So big UCLA night tonight. We are honored to have with us here tonight Dean Lent, who was a co-director of the film. Dean will be joining my co-curator Ross Lipman on stage immediately following the screening, so please stick around for that. But now please help me welcome to the stage Dean Lent.
Hello. This is amazing that everyone came here, that it's all these people after all these years. There's just one thing I want to say. There's one thing you should all look for. Near the end of the movie, there's a very attractive young man putting up flyers in a window, and that's me. Enjoy the film.
Fantastic. Okay, so with that, please turn off all cell phones and electronic devices and enjoy Border Radio. Thank you.
Does not get boring no matter how many times you see it.
Thank you.
So let's just start by, why don't you tell us how you and Allison and Kurt met each other?
We all met at UCLA Film School. I was walking down the hallway and I was talking about a film I had just seen with a friend of mine, and Allison said from behind me, "Oh my God, I love that too." And I turned around and there was Allison, and we started talking, and we became fast friends. I shot her Project 1 or Project 2, and then we both we became PAs on Paris, Texas. She hounded Wim Wenders for years by letter and begged him, "Can we be PAs on your new film?" So we were PAs on Paris, Texas, which was a great way to learn cinematography from Robbie Mueller.
Absolutely.
That was kind of like my training.
Did you work with Robbie Mueller closely?
No. I brought him coffee. I swept cigarettes off the floor. I did PA stuff, which is not fun, but I watched and watched and watched. And he talked to me. So it was more osmosis, I would say.
Great. And what about Kurt?
Kurt was Allison's boyfriend.
Right.
So he kind of came with Allison.
So all three of you were there on the set of Paris, Texas?
No, it was just Allison and me and a guy named Scott Kirby. Allison and Kurt were separated at the time. They were kind of like, and like love-hate. And at that time, they were separated, so. But when we got back from Paris, Texas, they got back together, and we all kind of said, me and Allison anyway said, being a PA sucks. So let's just make our own movie. And that's kind of how it started.
Right. And
with no money, no whatever. Just like, let's make a movie. Okay.
And how did the idea come about?
Ooh, good question. There was the trailer in Mexico. We had access to that. So we thought, okay, how can we build a story around this trailer in Mexico? And, okay, so let's have the guy's wife in LA. So it's sort of a cross-border thing. That's border radio. And it was a very serious, dark, brooding film with no musicians. It was very, just kind of very Wim Wenders-y. And the guy who was going to play Jeff couldn't. He tried to drop out. And we thought, okay, well, let's replace him. And it's like, well, let's replace him with someone interesting. And Kurt was obsessed with the Flesh Eaters. He said, let me try and get Christie. So we all went to the clubs where he was playing and just like, hey, we want you to be in our movie. He's like, oh, get out of here. And after like 3 or 4 shows of us keep showing up, he's like, okay, let me read the script.
So you didn't know him previously?
No.
Yeah.
No.
But the script was fully developed at that point?
No. It was like an idea of a script. It was probably like 20 pages. Originally, we had all of the actors, literally, it's just, okay, turn on the camera, just say whatever you want to say. And we just roll the camera for 10, 20 minutes. And we got absolute garbage. So we had about 3 or 4 hours of garbage and 5 minutes of stuff that was like, oh, this is interesting. So we threw away everything, went back and said, let's not have the actors improvise completely. Let's actually give them a structure and a bit of a story and enough dialogue to piece it together.
But this was with Christie and John Doe and
Yeah.
Luana. Yeah, wow. Yeah.
Well, actually, it was Christie and Luana at first.
Okay.
And Christie got enamored with us and said, hey, John, you want to be in this movie with me? And then John and Chris were in the movie, and then suddenly it was like, hey, we got our friend Dave Alvin. He wants to be in it now.
Wow.
So everyone, kind of piled on, and Tex and the Horseheads, which is one of my favorite scenes. I just love her. She again, like, oh, let me be in it too.
Yeah. So you kind of the idea was so free flowing that it was easily able to adapt to take on this whole layering with the whole music scene around it, and
yeah, and honestly, it was a gimmick for us to be able to sell the movie, to get money to raise money. It's like, oh well, let's just put some musicians in it, and we love punk rock. Well, they did. I wasn't a punk rock fan. I was like Queen and King Crimson and Pink Floyd. I was kind of like the odd man out in a way. But I became a fan of all of it.
So let's talk a little bit about the whole UCLA origin there, because you were students or you were students. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah, when we got back from Paris, Texas, and it's like, oh, we got to make a movie. It was our last year in film school. The film school that we were undergrads, so it's a 2-year program. And so we started Border Radio in our second year, and we got free equipment from UCLA. We weren't supposed to. We weren't taking any classes. And we edited in the flatbeds upstairs, which we weren't supposed to, but we just were students. And no one said anything, so.
And how long did that go on for?
Well, the film took 4 years to make, so we started it the first year. So there was 3 years of just like, yeah, I'm still a student here. And we would come in at midnight, carry boxes of film and film reels, and just stuff them in the edit bay, and start cutting. Be like 6 a.m. Put everything back in the boxes and drive away. And next night do the same thing over and over again. When we had film to cut.
Right. And am I right that Allison already had her daughter by then? Obviously.
Had a what?
Am I right that her daughter was kind of there for the editing?
Oh yeah, she would come because both the daughters actually would come.
Yeah.
Because Allison had 2 daughters that were, small kids. One is in the movie, Devin.
Yeah.
So they would just get sleeping bags and crash on the edit room floor while we cut all night.
For 3 years.
Well, not it would stop start because we'd raise like a couple $1,000 or find her like, hey dad, hey mom, and we'd shoot some, edit some. There was about a year period where we gave our film to what was the name of that play? Whatever. This lab in L.A. To process, knowing we didn't have a cent to give them, and they developed it because we knew, let's get in there, get in the lab, get it developed, and they can't throw it away legally, and we knew we'd pay them when we had the money, and it was like a year later, and it was like, oh yeah, here you are.
So they trusted you. That's a great thing.
Yeah, and they were fine. They were nice.
Yeah.
Apparently, you can't do that anymore. I don't think.
Yeah.
Times have changed.
Let's talk a little bit about the cross-pollination of the film and music scenes, because I think it was shot, I believe, in your house, but there's so many layers of film references, film posters all over the walls, and Christie's, one of his bands was Divine Horsemen.
Right.
And could you just talk a little bit about that cross-pollination? Was there a lot of talk going on, or am I kind of imagining this in my kind of little film archivist world here?
I think you are a bit.
Yeah.
And or again, I'm the Queen, Pink Floyd, King Crimson guy. Kurt and Allison were the punk kids. Mm-hmm. They kind of addressed that stuff. So I don't know.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay. That's right. And how did you and Allison and Kurt interact as directors?
Like I was telling you earlier, each one of us thought the other two were making the film. All of us did. None of us thought we were actually making the film. We all thought the other two were, because it's like, well, we're just, I don't know, I'm just sitting at the camera and putting up the lights, and Kurt was doing the sound, and Allison was taking care of sort of parenting the talent and kind of supervising wardrobe and stuff. So we were all kind of busy, and we kind of let the actors do their thing. So it just kind of happened.
So there was no one guiding the actors, really?
Well, it seemed like it, but there was, and I can't tell you how. I don't know how. I don't know how the film was made. And I talked to Allison. She says, "I don't know. How do we do that?" Because it's kind of well made.
Yeah.
And there seems to be a voice, and it's like, I know. I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
no, it's got a real sense of what it is.
It's collaboration. And I think everyone that does collaboration like that, like a band, maybe feels that way. I don't know.
Were you thinking of it in that way, as of yourselves being like a band while you were surrounded by
No.
those bands?
No, we were just all kind of let's just get this done, and let's it was like a puzzle. How do we make this into something entertaining?
Right. Well, I have a lot more questions I could ask, but I have a feeling that our audience is going to want to throw a number your way. So why don't we open it up to the audience here? I think there's going to be a microphone that can come around. Is that right?
There it is.
And do we have any questions?
This is like Oprah Winfrey.
While we're waiting for people to be thinking of questions, let me talk a little bit about your subsequent career. You went on to work with Allison on a number of films, I think. And why don't you tell us about that?
I shot 2 of Kurt's films just after Border Radio, and then Gas Food Lodging came along, and I shot that. Then I became an indie DP guy. Shot 20 features. I think my most famous, or at least the one that made the most money, is Jack Frost Killer Snowman. Yeah. Which, when I saw the first screening, I thought, well, this is the worst movie I've ever made in my life. But it screened about 2 years ago at the Egyptian Cinematheque as a classic camp film. And we did one of these.
Wow. And what's your current project?
My current project is we're in post-production now of a feature I wrote and directed called Feeling Randy, which is about me as a teenage boy in high school going to the Mustang Ranch brothel in Nevada to prove I was heterosexual to myself. Didn't work. And the hijinks ensued.
So is it a kind of a drama, comedy, a little of both? Or?
Yeah, it's a dark comedy. It gets dark. as you probably can imagine, because I'm kind of dark.
And where are you at in terms of your production?
We're almost to a fine cut. So now it's going to be music and tweaking things and making it pretty. And we've just, we're about to submit it to Sundance. I think it's pretty good.
All right, we're going to be waiting for it. Circling back to Border Radio, one thing I noticed in the credits, which I had not noticed before, but there were so many familiar names, but one of them was your sound mixer was Nietzsche Kakeen. Does that name ring a bell?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, because I don't know if some in the audience might know that she was the director of The Juniper Tree, an extraordinary film starring Bjork in her first leading role. And
What?
Can you tell us a little? Yeah,
I didn't know that.
yeah.
That's amazing.
I mean, Bjork had a career before then as musician and also had been kind of celebrity in Iceland for years. But anyway,
Yeah,
it's not
I-
about Bjork. I want to ask you about Nietzsche Kakeen. How did you connect with her, and what was it like working with her?
Well, at UCLA, when you do your project 2, you have someone mix your sound, and she mixed our sound. She was just like the person that mixed our sound.
Oh, but you didn't. Okay, so
No,
no
I mean,
good
you know,
story.
she was great. She was a nice person. But I mean, I didn't know she had this. I got to check out that film.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
Wonderful. So, do we have any questions from the audience now? Yeah, there, we've got one over there. So, in the front, I think they're going to bring a mic to you.
I have no idea who this guy is. Hi, Ben.
It's a plant.
Enjoyed watching the film on a
you.
big screen, and thank you for doing this, and it's good to see you. And so I wanted to ask you, you kind of covered a couple of questions I did plan on asking you, but I wanted to ask, in that 4 years where you're putting this movie together, how did you live? How did you manage to, what were you doing to pay the rent in the midst of all of that? How did you clothe and feed yourself?
Okay. First year, I was still a student. So, mom and dad. Second, third, fourth year, I immediately got a job after I graduated at Audiovisual Services at UCLA. That's how I did it. And I went immediately from like a operator to a tech behind the scenes. So I got a raise and I got full time. And I used their equipment to make dubs of Border Radio, and other things I can't tell you.
What about Allison and Kurt?
I don't know.
They found a way.
They found a way. Yeah. Yeah, I'll just say that. They found a way.
Do we have any other questions here? Shy audience tonight. Okay, no, there's one. Good.
It was. Did everyone hear the question? It. Yeah, well, it okay. So we premiered it before we got a release or anything at what's it called, Los Feliz Theater, before they cut it up into boxes, and we packed the house from end to end, and it was like one of the great nights of my lives. That everyone was just, they knew, the audience was full of like the punk scene people, friends of John Doe and the X and all the scene, and everyone was just laughing and cheering, and it was like insane. And we thought, okay, so we have this mega hit. And we played in a few film festivals like Berlin, I think, and Italy. Where else? We played at New York Market, in Columbus Circle, and we got like someone to pick it up, Pacific Arts or something like that, before they went under. And they did a kind of a brief, like 2-week trial opening, and it kind of came and it kind of went. We got mixed reviews. A lot of it was like, "What is this film? It's boring. It's like it's so badly shot. It's so sloppy."
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, it looks like it was dragged through the garbage. That was a quote.
How did you feel about that? I mean, I think it looks great.
Not well. I mean, no, it's
I mean, were there counter arguments though, or people?
Yeah,
who kind
yeah,
of
yeah. There absolutely were. I mean, like the L.A. Reader.
Yeah,
Or was it-
Weekly,
what-
LA Weekly.
The Weekly. I'm sorry. The Weekly initially had I don't know. And then there was someone there, Craig. I don't know. It was someone famous, but my memory is fucked up. Anyway, it's a guy who just like went no, and he like 2 weeks later he said, okay, that initial review, ignore that. This is the real review of Border Radio,
Oh.
and he gave us a glowing review.
What happened in those 2 weeks? Or
It did, this much business, and then it went to video, and kind of, what do you call it? Like a crock pot, slow cooked, and and it just started like building. Like wait a minute, this is cool. This is cool. This is cool. Over time.
one interesting thing I'll just say here about the cinematography, and then I'd like you to chime in and comment or correct me if I make any mistakes. But the film was shot in 16 millimeter with the 4:3 aspect ratio that we saw tonight, but it was released in 1.85, and what you're seeing is an archival print from the collection. And so we did not play it at the release aspect ratio, but at the shooting aspect ratio at your request.
Thank
and
God.
I think it looks much better. But also the other interesting thing is the print, as you saw, was very high contrast. And there's a new remastering by Criterion that looks very good, actually, but you see a lot more fine detail. It doesn't have the high contrast. I think both of them speak to an independent aesthetic that's very strong. So I don't know what that person who wrote that bad review about the cinematography was thinking. Maybe it had something to do with the cropping, but I was wondering if you could ruminate on these things a little bit as this film's cinematographer.
Oh yeah. I think when I first saw the 35 blow up as like a release print at some Cineplex, I was horrified because what we initially shot on 16 reversal is weird. It's not a negative, it's a positive. And it's very hard to shoot, actually. I didn't realize it, but
What was hard to shoot about the reversal?
you have to nail it. If you don't nail it, it either blows out or goes black.
Right. Right. The negative's more forgiving.
Not forgiving at all, no.
No, the negative is more. I mean,
Oh, the negative is much more forgiving, yes. You have room to kind of like, to fuck up. But the reversal has a kind of a crunchy immediacy, and the blacks are really black, and the whites kind of pop, which I really like, versus kind of like a, mid-tones, and, which is nice in certain things, but for this, it really, I think, adds to it. Like U-Turn by Oliver Stone, let's see, U-Turn, was shot on reversal, and it's absolutely gorgeous. I'm not a huge Oliver Stone fan, but I love that film. And one of the reasons is because it was shot on reversal. Okay, I'm going off on a tangent.
no, it's okay. That's good. But you were talking about seeing the blow up for the first time.
Yeah, Again, I was horrified because I was used to, like, when we showed it at the Los Feliz Theater, it was the original 16, and 16 projected with 16 directly from, not a release print or a print of a print of a print of a print. Looks really nice. It's got that immediacy versus kind of a mushy, crappy look. Where was I going with this?
So you're seeing the print at the blow up for the first time, and it was quite different.
Yeah, and disappointing. And then some video company, I think, was it Pacific Arts? Michael Nesmith had a.
Oh yeah, right.
Yes,
right.
He bought it for video release because actually the original company that bought the film went under about a month after we released it,
Right.
and thus took all of the money that we would make from the film. Period.
Yeah. So that's
Yeah, it kind of like our percentage just went with them when they went bankrupt.
kind of like the film story a little bit.
Yeah, so I think I made $6,000 from the movie.
Oh gosh.
Yeah. So Michael Nesmith's company bought it, and they just took the 35 millimeter and did just a one light swipe of the thing, which made it look even worse. On VHS, on old TVs back in the 90s, 2000, and it was just like I couldn't watch it.
But all these are different than what we saw tonight, correct?
Oh yeah, this is great.
Yeah.
And then Criterion picked it up, and
Yeah.
we found. Fortunately, I put this original 16 millimeter neg and sound under my bed for like 20 years, and when we got the call that they wanted to do the film, I think it was through Christie. He knew Criterion and said, "Hey, you got it." And they said, I think we found a 35 print that we could take. And I said, "Wait, I got the original 16 neg under my bed." And they're like, "Oh." And we put it up on not a film chain, but an actual, it was a Blu-ray thing with Criterion. Criterion is fantastic. They do like A+ work. And I'm just like, "Oh my God, this is what I shot." And this came damn close to that. I don't know how you guys did it.
Yeah, well, this is what was in the collection, so somebody did it in the past, and we don't know who. So,
Thank you, whoever it was.
do we have any other questions in the audience here? I saw.
Might they be including it on the release, because that'd be fantastic.
Well, the Criterion work was done quite a while ago, right?
The Criterion was done in 2006 or 7.
Yeah.
And no, it's on Enigma Records, or it was. It's out of print. I used to have like 10 copies, but I moved like 10 times in 10 years when I was doing TV. And I don't know where they are. But you could I think they're on. You can get it on eBay if you're really interested. I mean, it's a pretty good soundtrack.
Yeah. Any other questions here? There's one back there.
Hi.
Right?
I was wondering what UCLA was like when you went to UCLA. Like just like the film program.
It was the most relaxing, wonderful 2 years of my life. I've had more productive years and more like I've done better things, but my parents were paying for everything. All I did was go to school and hang out. I had really pretty hair. All the way down to here. And it was watching movies and talking about them, and I never studied for the exams, and I would get A's. Oh, that sounds really braggy. Just because it was like, I know, it just made sense. I grew up with a film brain.
When you say watching movies, did you actually go to the archives screenings? Do you recall if you guys would go to the archives screenings, or were they more screenings that were occurring in the classes?
It was screening for the classes. I mean, we'd watch like 4 or 5 movies a day at Melnitz, 35 projected, if they were shot in 35. And often, or not often, but sometimes, I think we were talking about up there, nitrate prints, like not original, but nitrate prints of like Citizen Kane and like early Technicolor nitrate prints of like Singing in the Rain. Did I say that?
Same.
And The Bandwagon, and just like color like you've never seen in your life, and I guess never will again.
So, great, yeah.
So yeah, UCLA was great.
I think we're getting a sign here that we should be wrapping up. Did you have any one last question, if anybody had one? Yeah, there's one.
With the documentary style interviews, and when you decided to like keep the questions kind of in the edit, when did you decide that, and why, and how?
I love this question. We were having problems with the story and how to get information across cheaply. So it's like we thought, well, maybe we should do a voiceover. No, we got to have them talking. So, well, okay, we'll just have like the characters talking as the characters, but to the camera. And then we thought, well, what if we interview them? Because that thing wasn't so much of a thing then. I mean, it's kind of more of a thing now.
Right.
And then we thought, well, what if we did it like we're 60 Minutes, like trying to figure out what's going on here, but not 60 Minutes. And we just said, and like we didn't want to explain it. It's just like, almost like 60 Minutes, but voice of God 60 Minutes. Or almost like The Office, I guess, in some ways.
Yeah, because that became a big thing in for a while in TV.
Yeah, and I'm not saying we started it, because I don't think we did, but we were close. Yeah. We were early.
There were some films in the 60s that were doing these types of things. But was that a question that we had down here? Did I see you? That's a maybe if ever I heard one. But no. Okay. So, all right. Well, any last thoughts that you wanted to share? Any good production story? Any good blowouts between these crazy characters that you had involved in the production?
Did everyone see my cameo?
Yeah.
Okay, good. She's got a question.
All right. Here's the microphone's coming.
I was just thinking, I really want to go back to school and see movies all the time. Can I get into UCLA? I was there for a long time. Will they take me back?
You never know.
If you wear this outfit.
Thanks.
I love this red thing.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us. And I'd like to thank our audience, too, for joining us for this entire Neorealism series. I know not a lot of you are returnees, so thank you for coming and keep an eye on the Archives programming because they've got a lot of great things coming up.
Thank you very much. This
Thank
was
you.
a wonderful night. Thank you.